Hello, I'm Michal Luria, and this talk is on the paper Social Boundaries for Personal Agents in the Interpersonal Space of the Home. This paper is co-authored with Rebecca Zheng, Bennett Huffman, Shuangni Huang, John Zimmerman, and Jodi Forlizzi. Today, millions of people have conversational AI agents in their home. As a result, these agents have access to personal information and many opportunities to collect data from user activities. However, at the moment, agents are designed as one-on-one devices, one agent and one user, whereas in reality, they exist in socially complex spaces. For example, what should an agent do when a mother-in-law asks for her daughter-in-law's location? Should the agent share this personal information? Should it stall or redirect the subject? Should it refuse? What should an agent do if it knows that a teenager is lying to their parents? Should it be able to keep secrets? These situations raise many questions, and design teams have few answers because the social mores in the space are unknown, and there are no design patterns to guide agent behavioral design. So, what do AI agents need to understand when using information in social contexts? In order to tackle this question, we use speed dating with storyboards as a method, in which researchers share a number of provocative futures in the form of storyboards, and then prompt participants to critically reflect on the implications of each one. Speed dating is an open-ended approach that allows researchers to refine and change storyboards as they gain insights. Similar to romantic speed dating, by experiencing a set of flexible, diverse, and open-ended interactions with technology, participants are more likely to have insights about their own needs and values. We chose to focus on homes because of the nuances and complexity it contains. The home encompasses hierarchies, conflict, roles, and a range of social situations. We believe that the questions and findings we identified in this work are also likely to emerge as important in other social environments. We also conducted our speed dating sessions with groups of family members in their home, aiming to create rich discussions. Using a group setting brought multiple perspectives and topics to debate. For example, different family members disagreed with each other, or teenagers called out their parents for their current behavior that is contradicting what they're saying. In the process, we made sure to include teenagers as equals and to provide an environment in which they can freely express their opinion. More details about how we ensured this equal participation can be found in the paper. In order to make these speed dating sessions as rich as possible, we went through a long and iterative process to generate our storyboards. We wanted to make sure that the storyboards were both neutral and provocative, and that they're successful in generating discussion. So within a team of 8 designers, we used several ideation methods to generate as many one-liner situations and different behaviors for agents in social contexts. The only constraint that we had was that the situation had to involve at least 2 individuals and a single agent. For example, a user asks an agent to share the schedule of her live-in partner without his explicit permission. A user asks their agent to remind their partner that she promised to do the dishes. Or an agent detects a lie told by a teenager to their parents about what they are doing online. We then used affinity diagramming to group these few hundred ideas by affinity, and we concluded with a set of 8 behavioral categories. Some of the categories include agent proactivity or response to conflict between individuals. These were not intended to be an exhaustive list, but an initial set of ideas to test and build off of. Once we had these initial topics, we moved on to iteratively create storyboards that would best describe each one. Here are a couple of examples of the storyboards we ended up with. This one looks at proactivity and hierarchy. So Anne and Taylor are 2 siblings aged 16 and 17. One day, their parents leave for the night. Their friend comes over to hang out, and he brings beer with him. The friend persuades Anne and Taylor to have a drink. The agent detects that they are consuming alcohol and immediately reports to the parents. Another example that looks into conflict. Anne always borrows clothes from her sister Taylor, who gets very annoyed by that. Before leaving the house, Taylor asks the family agent to keep an eye on her sister. Anne is getting ready for a party, and she's about to sneak into Taylor's room to get a dress. Right before Anne enters Taylor's room, the agent greets her in the hall. afraid the agent will tell her sister, and asks the agent to keep it a secret. When Taylor comes home, the agent greets her and lets her know that Anne was in her room and took her red dress. We iterated several times on each storyboard to make sure it generates conversation and that the storyboard is not obviously good or bad. Given our goal to have participants reflect on their needs and values, creating discussion was key. So overall in the study, we had 21 storyboards, which we iterated on 8 times. We had 18 families that participated in the study with a total of 54 participants. Families averaged 3 participants, with each session including at least 1 adult and 1 child over the age of 12. After collecting and transcribing the results, we analyzed them using affinity diagramming. I will discuss the main results from the study that are centered around 2 themes: boundaries and agent proactivity. The rest of the findings can be found in the paper. Boundaries for agent behavior were shaped by several aspects. A critical one was users' social roles. Family members fulfill roles in a range of contexts, and those might come into play in interaction with technology. The most significant role division was the distinction between parents and children. Another role structure with implications was a distinction between insiders, who were people who live within the home, and outsiders, those that don't. By asking about or being able to identify these roles, agents could make better decisions about how much access to information a user should or shouldn't have, depending on their role. Overall, participants agreed that parents and insiders should have more access and permissions, but again, not without boundary. Designers should consider the complexity of designing for social roles and work together with social psychology experts to generate appropriate social behaviors. For example, previous research has shown that preventing all inappropriate behavior by children can be harmful to the development of their sense of judgment. Another aspect that played into boundaries was agent ownership. In a range of situations, participants expressed a desire to know who the agent belongs to, and by knowing who it belongs to, indicate how the agent should behave. This was especially true in situations of conflict. Several participants explained that knowing who the owner of an agent is can assist them in anticipating how the agent is likely to behave and react in a range of social situations. For proactivity, 2 factors indicated how proactive an agent should be. One was how critical the situation is. For example, is the situation an emergency or life-threatening, or is it just an everyday encounter? What makes this problem complicated is that different participants had a different view on what makes an emergency. Some participants thought that a minor drinking beer is definitely an emergency, while others disagreed. However, participants shared a view on proactivity thresholds and indicated 3 levels of possible proactivity that can vary depending on the situation: reactive, proactive, and proactive recommender. When participants desired the lowest level of proactivity, they only wanted agents to respond in social situations when asked. The middle threshold of social proactivity was for the agent to be proactive and be able to intervene, but only provide information and not recommendations. In the highest threshold of proactivity, participants wanted the agent to provide not only information, but also suggest a recommendation. While participants varied on their preference and depending on the situation, we did see that the bottom and top boundaries were pretty clear. Participants who only wanted the agent to provide information when asked for it were still open to the idea of an agent who can understand and respond to social situations. On the other end, participants who wanted the most involved agents still did not want them to enforce a decision upon them. These findings and suggestions are meant to be implemented when ideal privacy structures are in place. Unfortunately, this is not the case today, with conversational agents constantly making headlines due to security breaches and misuse of data. Therefore, our findings should be considered with caution. We are also planning to address this concern in future work in an attempt to better understand how agents can be more socially sophisticated while giving users a sense of security and maintaining their information safe. For more results and an in-depth discussion, See our paper, Social Boundaries for Personal Agents in the Interpersonal Space of the Home. I would also like to thank my collaborators and co-authors, as well as NSF, for funding this work. Thank you.